and we're leaving on a jet plane. Don't know when we'll be back again.
22nd of February we'll be back.
So the question that will probably pop into your mind if you're watching this video is, why are Alan and Cindy leaving America when their videos are all about them travelling around America? And the reality is that if you want to get a visa to go to America from Australia, you will probably only be granted 3 months.
So...
Tell me I'm going the wrong way. Yeah, I have to be.
So we're in the Fiat Panda. It's 5 o'clock at night, it's 3 degrees, and we're driving a manual. Aren't you?
Keep left at the fork.
More snow.
And you'll probably notice from looking at these videos that our choice of destination was not necessarily the warmest of choices. We had left the rather warm temperatures of Florida, even though America was in the middle of its winter, to go to a place that was substantially colder. A place with snow-peaked mountains, beautiful highways, amazing views, that had temperatures pulling down to somewhere around -5 degrees Celsius. But a place that I had practically never heard of, a place that I had not really cared to think about before, and a place that absolutely blew our minds. Because every turn in Croatia is simply amazing.
And it seems maybe I'm running out of oxygen. Or maybe I'm just running out of breath.
And it was because of this beauty that we found ourselves taking photo after photo and video after video. And it became apparent that if we're going to capture the story of our perspective of Croatia, we were going to have to split these videos into separate chapters.
If you ignore the fact that I'm puffing, you might understand what I'm saying. But every turn in Croatia is amazing, and this wall is none the different.
So bearing this all in mind, we thought we might concentrate this video on the impact that Croatia has had as a result of its wars, the long gone and the more recent, not from a political standpoint, but from the perspective of a couple of people walking around the Croatia landscape and seeing what has happened. From the perspective of two Australians that have come from a country such as Australia, where our Western history only dates back 300 years, to step into a world like Croatia is something amazing. Their history dates back easily 3,000 years, and a lot of it's been recorded. It's been recorded in document, and it's been recorded in the landscape with the buildings that have been built and the architecture within them. It dates well back before Christ. There's a lot that exists there that's based around the Roman era, where the Romans have moved in on Croatia and made it part of the Roman Empire. Italy, if you go across the Adriatic Ocean from where these photos are taken in Zadar, is approximately 100 miles away. So it was not surprising that Croatia was among the first areas that the Romans took on. Old Zadar sits down at the ocean end of Zadar, and ironically was bombed during the Second World War. Zadar dates back pre-Roman era, pre-Christ. Initially we landed in Zagreb, grabbed our little Fiat Panda that we rented and drove it to a place called Zadar. the back of Zadar is a little village called Pilisnik, and that's where we stayed for approximately 3 weeks. From there you could drive 2 hours in any which direction and continually trip over something that was just nothing short of mind-blowing. For me, this one was just the start of it. You see, if you'd gone back approximately 200 years before Christ and visited this area, you would have found the Illyrian tribes who lived in this part of Croatia at the time. And they built their own fortifications to protect themselves from the Romans. Parts of those fortifications are still here. And then to top it off, the Romans grabbed these sites and turned them into something of their own. This was excavated in the early 1900s, and they could see in the architecture fairly quickly evidence of what the Romans had done in there to build their own fortification. The amazing thing about the site now is it is totally free. You can simply just drive up there and go and have a look at something that is literally thousands of years old. And then you step away from there and drive maybe an hour in a slightly different direction, and you are greeted by views like this. Stunning landscapes, mountainous terrain, bridges with bungee jumping on them. And then at the top of them, you may come across a building, something along the lines of this. And it makes you wonder, what exactly has happened here? And what is it all about? I think that's when curiosity really got the better of me, because the more I saw, the more I needed to understand. And the history for war in these areas dates not just back over 3,000 years, it dates back to the more recent, to the last 30 or 40 years, such as these pictures which show some of the impacts around the Yugoslav war, where Serbia had invaded Croatia. And without knowing initially, as you drive down some of these roads, you think to yourself, why haven't they fixed that house? What happened there? And it only takes a short drive to somebody, maybe from the local area, to help you understand that there's a fair likelihood that those pitting marks in the walls, those holes in those buildings, were more than likely the result of mortar rounds, tank fire and gunshots. And I feel like what astounded me even more so was that you can be driving through villages with endless number of houses that have sustained this sort of damage, but then take another drive, maybe an hour or two down the road, and come to a place which is way more familiar to most of us. And this is the problem. If you're a tourist and you're going to Croatia, there's probably very little doubt that Dubrovnik is on your agenda. Dubrovnik was built primarily by the Romans. It was built somewhere around 600 years AC. And it is a fortification. It was a fortification to protect them. For the local tourists, however, it's probably more likely to be identified through the scenes within the series of Game of Thrones. Dubrovnik, it goes without saying, is absolutely beautiful. To simply drive around the castle walls is stunning. And to walk through it is amazing. To have so much history wrapped up in one spot is, for me, beyond belief. The churches, the architecture, the artwork, the history. Interestingly for me, the reason that Dubrovnik still stands today is that they built it so solidly as a fortification in times of war. A war that existed over 2,000 years ago. Ironically, if you look up from Dubrovnik towards the top of a hill, not too far from there, you'll see evidence of a war that only happened 30 years ago. And it's not too hard to understand the impact that happened to such a beautiful place as the result of a war, not from 2,000 years ago, but from less than half a century ago. And today we sit at the highest point of Dubrovnik. Somewhere up here there's a chairlift. We haven't actually found it yet. And this was the defensive point during the Yugoslav war for Dubrovnik. It's the site of a museum, and it is also the site of amazing views. And as you stand at the top of that hill, it's not too hard to understand why they would build another fortification up there. This fortification was initially built by the French well prior to the Yugoslav war, but then was used again as a vantage point by the Croatians to help protect Dubrovnik. Poor old Dubrovnik got the living daylights bombed out of it during the Yugoslav war, and it saddens me amazingly to think that this day and age we cannot get ourselves into a position where we are not better equipped to work with each other to protect the people and the places of such amazing beauty from the impact of wars like this. Dubrovnik was absolutely amazing. None the different than Zagreb or Zadar in its own right, but it certainly had an overpowering beauty about it. You drive out of Dubrovnik, the highways are simply mind-blowing. The backdrop of the mountains that surrounds them, the history as you drive through them. There's a town somewhere between Dubrovnik and Zadar by the name of Split, and once again you see the same story over and over and over. Despite overwhelming odds, the Croatian people managed to defend Croatia and repel the Serbian invaders during the Yugoslav War, and I can only commend them for their efforts. They would have to be among the nicest people I've ever met in my life, and ultimately it allows people like us to come and visit their land and appreciate the history that it holds.